page 23, chapter 2, the chemical basis of life. Chemicals compose the structures of the body, and the interactions of chemicals with one another are responsible for the function of the body. Nerve impulse generation, digestion, muscle contraction, and metabolism can be described in chemical terms. Many abnormal conditions and illnesses, as well as their treatments, can also be explained in chemical terms. For example, Parkinson's disease, which causes uncontrollable shaking movements, results from a shortage of a chemical called dopamine in certain nerve cells in the brain. It can be treated by giving patients another chemical, which brain cells convert to dopamine. To understand anatomy and physiology, it is essential to have a basic knowledge of chemistry, the scientific discipline concerned with the atomic composition and structure of substances and the reactions they undergo. This chapter outlines basic chemistry, page 24, chemical reactions and energy, page 32, inorganic chemistry, page 36, and organic chemistry, page 39. It is not a comprehensive review of chemistry, but it does review some of the basic concepts. When necessary, refer back to this chapter when a chemical phenomena are discussed later in the book. The chemical composition of the body's structures determines their function. The molecules forming collagen fibers are like tiny ropes, and collagen fibers make tissues strong yet flexible. The molecules forming elastic fibers resemble microscopic coiled springs. The elastic fibers allow tissues to be stretched and then recoiled back to their original shape. End of page 23, beginning page 24. Basic chemistry. Mass, matter, and weight. All living and non-living things are composed of matter, which is anything that occupies space and has mass. Mass is the amount of matter in an object, and weight is the gravitational force acting on an object of a given mass. For example, the weight of an apple results from the force of gravity, quote, pulling, end quote, on the apple's mass. The kilogram, kg, which is the mass of a platinum-iridium cylinder kept at the International Bureau of Weights and Measurements in France, is the international unit for mass. The mass of all other objects is compared with this cylinder. For example, a 2.2 pound lead weight, or 1 liter, 1.06 quarts of water, each has a mass of approximately 1 kilogram, or 1 kg. An object with 1/1000 the mass of a kilogram is defined as having a mass of 1 gram, or 1 g. Chemists use a balance to determine the mass of objects. Although we commonly refer to, quote, weighing, end quote, an object on a balance, we are actually, quote, massing, end quote, the object, because the balance compares objects of unknown mass with objects of known mass. When the unknown and known masses are exactly balanced, the gravitational pull of the Earth on both of them is the same. Thus, the effect of gravity on the unknown mass is counteracted by the effect of gravity on the known mass. A balance produces the same results on a mountaintop as at sea level because it does not matter that gravitational pull at sea level is stronger than on a mountaintop. It only matters that the effect of gravity on both is unknown and known masses is the same. Here is a table with common elements. I'm going to read the elements, the symbol, the atomic number, the mass number, atomic mass, percentage in human body weight by and the percent in human body by number of atoms percent. The first one is hydrogen, symbol is C, atomic number is 1, mass number is 1, atomic mass is 1.008, percent in human body by weight is 9.5, and percent in human body by number of atoms is 63%. Next element is carbon, symbol is C, atomic number is 6, mass number is 12, atomic mass is 12.01, percent in human body by weight is 18.5, percent in human body by number of atoms is 9.5. Next element is nitrogen. The symbol is N, atomic number is 7, mass number is 14, atomic mass is 14.01, percent in human body by weight is 3.3, percent in human body by number of atoms is 1.4. Next element is oxygen. The symbol is 0 or O. Atomic number is 8, mass number is 16, atomic mass is 16.00, percent in human body by weight is 65.0, percent in human body by number of atoms is 25.5. Next element is fluorine, symbol is F, atomic number is 9, mass number is 19, atomic mass is 19.00, percent in human body by weight is trace, and percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is sodium, symbol is Na, atomic number is 11, mass number is 23, atomic mass is 22.99, percent in human body by weight is 0.2, percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.3. Next element is magnesium. The symbol is Mg, atomic number is 12, mass number is 24, atomic mass is 24.31, percent in human body by weight is 0.1, percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.1. Next element is phosphorus, symbol is P, atomic number is 15, mass number is 31, atomic mass is 30.97, percent in human body by weight is 1.0, percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.22. Next element is sulfur, symbol is S, atomic number is 16, mass number is 32, atomic mass is 32.07, percent in human body by weight is 0.3, percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.05. Next element is chlorine, symbol is Cl, atomic number is 17, mass number is 35, atomic mass is 35.45, percent in human body by weight is 0.2, percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.03. Next element is potassium, symbol is K, atomic number is 19, mass number is 39, atomic mass is 39.10, percent in human body by weight is 0.4. Percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.06. Next element is calcium. Symbol is Ca. Atomic number is 20. Mass number is 40. Atomic mass is 40.08. Percent in human body by weight is 1.5. Percent in human body by number of atoms is 0.31. Next element is chromium. Symbol is Cr. Atomic number is 24. Mass number is 52. Atomic mass is 52.00. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is manganese. Symbol is Mn. Atomic number is 25. Mass number is 55. Atomic mass is 54.94. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is iron. Symbol is Fe. Atomic number is 26. Mass number is 56. Atomic mass is 55.85. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is cobalt. Symbol is Co. Atomic number is 27. Mass number is 59. Atomic mass is 58.93. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is copper. Symbol is Cu. Atomic number is 29. Mass number is 63. Atomic mass is 63.55. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is zinc. Symbol is Zn. Atomic number is 30. Mass number is 64. Atomic mass is 65.39. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. The next element is selenium. Symbol is Se. Atomic number is 34. Mass number is 80. Atomic mass is 78.96. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Next element is molybdenum. Molybdenum. Symbol is Mo. Atomic number is 42. Mass number is 98. Atomic mass is 95.94. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Last element is iodine. The symbol is I. Atomic number is 53. Mass number is 127. Atomic mass is 126.9. Percent in human body by weight is trace. Percent in human body by number of atoms is trace. Resuming the main reading. Elements and atoms. An element is the simplest type of matter with unique chemical properties. A list of the elements commonly found in the human body is given in Table 2.1, which I just read. About 96% of the weight of the body results from elements oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. the smallest particle of an element that has chemical characteristics of that element. An element is composed of atoms of only one kind. For example, the element carbon is composed of only carbon atoms, and the element oxygen is composed of only oxygen atoms. An element or an atom of that element often is represented by a symbol. Usually the first letter or letters of the element's name are used. For example, C for carbon, H for hydrogen, Ca for calcium, and Cl for chlorine. Occasionally, the symbol is taken from the Latin, Greek, or Arabic name for the element. For example, Na from the Latin word natrium is the symbol for sodium. Atomic structure. The characteristics of matter result from the structure, organization, and behavior of atoms. Atoms are composed of subatomic particles, some of which have an electric charge. The three major types of subatomic particles are neutrons, protons, and electrons. A neutron has no electric charge. A proton has one positive charge, and an electron has one negative charge. The positive charge of a proton is equal in magnitude to the negative charge of an electron. The number of protons and electrons in each atom is equal, and the individual charges cancel each other. Therefore, each atom is electrically neutral. Protons and neutrons form the nucleus at the center of an atom, and electrons are moving around the nucleus. The nucleus accounts for 99.97% of an atom's mass, but only 1/10-trillionth of its volume. Most of the volume of an atom is composed by electrons. Although it is impossible to know precisely where any given electron is located at any particular moment, the region where it is most likely to be found can be represented by an electron cloud. The likelihood of locating an electron at a specific point in a region correlates with the darkness of that region. In the diagram of the book, which I'm not going to show, the darker the color, the greater the likelihood of finding the electron there at any given moment. Atomic number and mass number. The atomic number of an element is equal to the number of protons in each atom, and because the number of electrons and protons is equal, the atomic number is also the number of electrons. Each element is uniquely defined by the number of protons in the atoms of that element. For example, only hydrogen atoms have one proton. Only carbon atoms have 6 protons. And only oxygen atoms have 8 protons. There are 90 naturally occurring elements, but additional elements have been synthesized by altering atomic nuclei. See the periodic table in Appendix A for additional information about the elements. Protons and neutrons have about the same mass, and they are responsible for most of the mass of atoms. Electrons, on the other hand, have very little mass. The mass number of an electron is the end of page 25, beginning page 26. Number of protons plus the number of neutrons in each atom. For example, the mass number for carbon is 12 because it has 6 protons and 6 neutrons. And just a brief note, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the section on atoms and elements begins on page 24 and it ends on 25. So isotopes and atomic mass. Isotopes are two or more forms of the same element that have the same number of protons and electrons, but a different number of neutrons. Thus, isotopes have the same atomic number, but different mass numbers. There are three isotopes of hydrogen: hydrogen, deuterium, and tritium. All three isotopes have one proton and one electron, but hydrogen has no neutrons in its nucleus. Deuterium has one neutron, and tritium has two neutrons. Isotopes can be donated using the symbol of an element preceded by the mass number of protons and neutrons of the isotope. Thus, hydrogen is 1H, deuterium is 2H, and tritium is 3H. Individual atoms have very little mass. A hydrogen atom has a mass of 1.67 times 10 to the negative 24th power. See Appendix B for an explanation of the scientific notation of numbers. To avoid using such small numbers, a system of relative atomic mass is used. In this system, a unified atomic mass unit, in parentheses, U, in parentheses, or Dalton, in parentheses, capital D, lowercase a, in parentheses, is 1/12 the mass of 12C, a carbon atom with 6 protons and 6 neutrons. Thus, 12C has an atomic mass of exactly 12U, a naturally occurring sample of carbon. However, contains mostly 12C, but also a small quantity of other carbon isotopes, such as 13C, which has 6 protons and 7 neutrons. The atomic mass of an element is the average mass of its naturally occurring isotopes, taking into account the relative abundance of each isotope. For example, the atomic mass of the element carbon is 12.01U, which is slightly more than 12U because of the additional mass of the small amount of other carbon isotopes. Because the atomic mass is an average, a sample of carbon can be treated as if all the carbon atoms had an atomic mass of 12.01U. The mole and molar mass. Avogadro's number is the number of atoms in exactly 12G of 12C. This enormous number is 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd power. A mole of a substance contains Avogadro's number of entities, such as atoms, ions, or molecules. The molar mass of a substance is the mass of 1 mole of the substance expressed in grams. Because 12G of 12C is used as the standard, the atomic mass of an entity expressed in unified atomic mass units is the same as the molar mass expressed in grams. Thus, carbon atoms have an atomic mass of 12.01U, and 12.01 grams of carbon have Avogadro's number, 1 mole of carbon atoms. Just as a grocer sells eggs in lots of 12, a dozen, a chemist groups atoms in lots of 6.022 times 10 to the 23rd, Avogadro's number, 1 mole. A molar mass is used as a convenient way to determine the number of atoms in a sample of an element. For example, 1.008 grams of hydrogen, 1 mole, has the same number of atoms as 12.01 grams of carbon, 1 mole. Electrons and chemical bonding. The outermost electrons of an atom determine its chemical behavior. When these outermost electrons are transferred or shared between atoms, chemical bonding occurs. Two major types of chemical bonding are ionic and covalent bonding. Ionic bonding. An atom is electrically neutral because it has an equal number of protons and electrons. If an atom loses or gains electrons, the number of protons and electrons are no longer equal. And, end of page 26, beginning page 27. A charged particle called an ion is formed. After an atom loses an electron, it has one more proton than it has electrons, and is positively charged. A sodium atom, Na, can lose an electron to become a positively charged sodium ion, Na+. After an atom gains an electron, it has one more electron than it has protons and is negatively charged. A chlorine atom, Cl, can accept an electron to become a negatively charged chloride ion, Cl-. Positively charged ions are called cations, and negatively charged ions are called anions. Because positively charged ions are attracted to each other, cations and anions tend to remain close together, which is called ionic bonding. For example, sodium plus and chlorine minus are held together by ionic bonding to form an array of ions called sodium chloride, NaCl, or table salt. Some ions commonly found in the body are listed in table 12.2.2. Going to table 2.2, important ions. So it has a list of common ions, symbols, and significance. So first ion, calcium. Symbols, Ca to the second power plus. Significance, part of bones and teeth, blood clotting, muscle contraction, release of neurotransmitters. Next common ion, sodium. Symbols, Na+. Significance, membrane potentials, water balance. Common ions, potassium. Symbols, K+. Significance, membrane potentials. Next common ion, hydrogen. Symbol, H+. Significance, acid-base balance. Next common ion, hydroxide. Symbol, OH negative. Capital O, capital H negative. Significance, acid-base balance. Next common ion, chloride. Symbol, capital C, lowercase l, minus. Significance, water balance. Next common ion, bicarbonate. Symbol, capital H, capital C, capital O, 3, and then minus. Significance, acid-base balance. Next common ion, ammonium. Symbols, capital N, capital H, 4+. Significance, acid-base balance. Next common ion, phosphate. Symbol, capital P, capital O, 4 to the third power, minus. Significance, part of bones and teeth, energy exchange, acid-base balance. Next common ion is iron. Symbol, capital F, lowercase e to the second power plus. Significance: red blood cell formation. Next common ion, magnesium. Symbol: capital M, lowercase g to the second power plus. Significance: necessary for enzymes. Last common ion, iodide. Symbols: capital I minus. Significance: present in thyroid hormones. And then there's a note for one of the figures, but I'm just going to read it and not show it. A sodium atom loses an electron to become a smaller positively charged ion, and a chlorine atom gains an electron to become a larger negatively charged ion. The attraction between the oppositely charged ions results in ionic bonding and the formation of sodium chloride. The sodium and chlorine ions are organized to form a cube-shaped array. Back to the main reading. Covalent bonding. Covalent bonding results when atoms share one or more pairs of electrons. The resulting combination of atoms is called a molecule. An example is the covalent bond between two hydrogen atoms. End of page 27. Beginning page 28. To form a hydrogen molecule, each hydrogen atom has one electron. As the two hydrogen atoms get closer together, a positively charged nucleus of each atom begins to attract the electron of the other atom. At an optimal distance, the two nuclei mutually attract two electrons, and each electron is shared by both nuclei. The two hydrogen atoms are now held together by a covalent bond. When an electron pair is shared between two atoms, a single covalent bond results. A single covalent bond is represented by a single line between the symbols of the atoms involved. A double covalent bond results when two atoms share 4 electrons, 2 from each atom. When a carbon atom combines with 2 oxygen atoms to form carbon dioxide, 2 double covalent bonds are formed. Double covalent bonds are indicated by a double line between the atoms. An example is O double line C double line O. When electrons are shared equally between atoms, as in a hydrogen molecule, the bonds are called nonpolar covalent bonds. Atoms bound to one another by a covalent bond do not always share their electrons equally. However, because the nucleus of one atom attracts the electrons more strongly than does the nucleus of the other atom, bonds of this type are called polar covalent bonds and are common in both living and non-living matter. Polar covalent bonds can result in polar molecules, which are electrically asymmetric. For example, oxygen atoms attract electrons more strongly than do hydrogen atoms. When covalent bonding between an oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms forms a water molecule, the electrons are located in the vicinity of the oxygen nucleus more than in the vicinity of the hydrogen nuclei. Because electrons have a negative charge, the oxygen side of the molecule is slightly more negative than the hydrogen side. Molecules and compounds. A molecule is formed when 2 or more electrons chemically combine to form a structure that behaves as an independent unit. The atoms that combine to form a molecule can be of the same type, such as two hydrogen atoms combining to form a hydrogen molecule. More typically, a molecule consists of two or more different types of atoms, such as two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom forming water. Thus, a glass of water consists of a collection of individual water molecules positioned next to one another. A compound is a substance composed of two or more different types of atoms that are chemically combined. Not all molecules are compounds. For example, a hydrogen molecule is not a compound because it does not consist of different types of atoms. Some compounds are molecules and some are not. Covalent compounds. End of page 28, beginning page 29, in which different types of atoms are held together by covalent bonds, are molecules because the sharing of electrons results in the formation of distinct independent units. Water is an example of a substance that is a compound and a molecule. On the other hand, ionic compounds are not molecules because the ions are held together by the force of attraction between opposite charges. A piece of NaCl, or sodium chloride, does not consist of NaCl molecules positioned next to each other. Instead, table salt is an organized array of sodium plus, or Na plus, and Cl negative, or chloride negative, in which each charged ion is surrounded by several examples of a substance that is a compound but is not a molecule. The kinds and numbers of atoms or ions in a molecule or compound can be represented by a formula consisting of the symbols of the atoms or ions plus subscripts denoting the number of each type of atom or ion. The formula for glucose, a sugar, is C6H12O6, indicating that glucose has 6 carbon, 12 hydrogen, and 6 oxygen atoms. The molecular mass of a molecule or compound can be determined by adding up the atomic masses of its atoms or ions. The term molecular mass is used for convenience for ionic compounds, even though they are not molecules. For example, the atomic mass of sodium is 22.99 and chloride is 35.45. The molecular mass of NaCl, therefore, is 58.44, which is 22.99 plus 35.45. Clinical focus: radioactive isotopes and X-rays. Protons, neutrons, and electrons are responsible for chemical properties of atoms. They also have other properties that can be useful in a clinical setting. For example, they have been used to develop methods for examining the inside of the body. Radioactive isotopes are commonly used by clinicians and researchers because sensitive measuring devices can detect the radioactivity, even when they are present in very small amounts. Radioactive isotopes have unstable nuclei that spontaneously change to form more stable nuclei. As a result, either new isotopes or new elements are produced. In this process of nuclear change, alpha particles, beta particles, and gamma rays are emitted from the nuclei of radioactive isotopes. Alpha particles are positively charged helium ions, He2+, which consists of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. Beta particles are electrons formed as neutrons changed into protons. An electron is ejected from the neutron, and the proton that is produced remains in the nucleus. Gamma rays are a form of electromagnetic radiation, high-energy photons, released from nuclei as they lose energy. All isotopes of an element have the same atomic number, and their chemical behavior is very similar. For example, 3H, or tritium, can substitute for 1H, hydrogen. 1H is also known as hydrogen. And either 125 iodine or 131 iodine can substitute for 126 iodine in chemical reactions. Several procedures that are used to determine the concentration of substances, such as hormones, depend on the incorporation of small amounts of radioactive isotopes, such as 125 iodine, into the substances being measured. Clinicians using these procedures can more accurately diagnose disorders of the thyroid gland, the adrenal gland, and reproductive organs. Radioactive isotopes are also used to treat cancer. Some of the particles released from isotopes have a very high energy content and can penetrate and destroy tissues. Thus, radioactive isotopes can be used to destroy tumors because rapidly growing tissues, such as tumors, are more sensitive to radiation than are healthy cells. Radiation can also be used to sterilize materials that cannot be exposed to high temperatures. Example, some fabric and plastic items used during surgical procedures. In addition, radioactive emissions can be used to sterilize food and other items. X-rays are electromagnetic radiations with a much shorter wavelength than visible light. When electric current is used to heat a filament to a very high temperatures, energy of the electron becomes so great that some electrons are emitted from the hot filament. When these electrons strike a positive electrode at high speeds, they release some of their energy in the form of X-rays. X-rays do not penetrate dense material as readily as they penetrate less dense material, and X-rays can expose photographic film. Consequently, an X-ray beam can pass through a person and onto a photographic film. Dense tissues of the body absorb the X-rays, and in these areas, the film is underexposed and so appears white or light in color on the developed film. On the other hand, X-rays readily pass through less dense tissue, and the film in these areas is overexposed and appears black or dark in color. In an X-ray film of the skeletal system, the dense bones are white, and the less dense soft tissues are dark, often so dark no details can be seen. Because the dense bone material is clearly visible, X-rays can be used to determine whether bones are broken or have other abnormalities. Soft tissues can be photographed by using low-energy X-rays. Mammograms are low-energy X-rays of the breast that can be used to detect tumors because tumors are slightly denser than normal tissue. Radiopaque substances are dense materials that absorb X-rays. If a radiopaque liquid is given to a patient, the liquid assumes the shape of the organ into which it is placed. For example, if a barium solution is swallowed, the outline of the upper digestive tract can be photographed using X-rays to detect such abnormalities as ulcers. End of page 29, beginning page 30. Intermolecular forces. Intermolecular forces result from the weak electrostatic attractions between oppositely charged parts of molecules, or between ions and molecules. intermolecular forces are much weaker than the forces producing chemical bonding. Hydrogen bonds. Molecules with polar covalent bonds have positive and negative ends. Intermolecular force results from the attraction of the positive end of one polar molecule to the negative end of another polar molecule. When hydrogen forms a covalent bond with oxygen, nitrogen, or fluorine, the resulting molecule becomes very polarized. If the positively charged hydrogen of one molecule is attracted to the negatively charged oxygen, nitrogen, or fluorine of another molecule, a hydrogen bond is formed. For example, the positively charged hydrogen atoms of a water molecule form the hydrogen bonds with the negatively charged oxygen atoms of other water molecules. Hydrogen bonds play an important role in determining the shape of complex molecules because the hydrogen bonds between different polar parts of the molecule hold the molecule in its normal three-dimensional shape. See, quote, protons, end quote, page 44, and, quote, nucleic acids, DNA and RNA, end quote, page 47. End of page 30, beginning page 31. Comparison of bonds. Ionic bond. A complete transfer of electrons between two atoms results in separate positively charged and negatively charged ions. Polar covalent bond. An unequal sharing of electrons between two atoms resulting in a slight positive charge on one side of the molecule and slight negative charge on the other side of the molecule. Non-polar covalent bond. An equal sharing of electrons between two atoms results in an even charge distribution among the atoms of the molecule. Hydrogen bond. The attraction of positively charged ends of one polar molecule to another polar molecule holds molecules or parts of molecules together. Solubility and dissociation. Solubility is the ability of one substance to dissolve in another. For example, when sugar dissolves in water, charged substances such as sodium chloride and polar salt substances such as glucose dissolve in water readily, whereas non-polar substances such as oils do not. We all have seen how oils float on water. Substances dissolve in water when they become surrounded by water molecules. If the positive and negative ends of the water molecules are attracted more to the charged ends of other molecules than they are to each other, the hydrogen bonds between the ends of the water molecules are broken, and the water molecules surround the other molecules, which become dissolved in the water. When ionic compounds dissolve in water, their ions dissociate or separate from one another because the cations are attracted to the negative ends of the water molecules, and the anions are attracted to the positive ends of the water molecules. When sodium chloride dissociates in water, the sodium and chloride ions separate. The water molecules surround and isolate the ions, thereby keeping them in solution. End of page 31, beginning page 32. When molecules, covalent compounds, dissolve in water, they usually remain intact, even though they are surrounded by water molecules. Thus, in a glucose solution, glucose molecules are surrounded by water molecules. Cations and anions, that is, dissociate in water are sometimes called electrolytes because they have the capacity to conduct an electric current, which is the flow of charged particles. An electrocardiogram, ECG, is a recording of electric currents produced by the heart. These currents can be detected by electrodes on the surface of the body because the ions in the body fluids conduct electric currents. Molecules that do not dissociate form solutions that do not conduct electricity and are called non-electrolytes. Pure water is a non-electrolyte. Chemical reactions and energy. In a chemical reaction, atoms, ions, molecules, or compounds interact either to form or to break chemical bonds. The substance that enters into a chemical reaction are called reactants, and the substances that result from the chemical reaction are called products. For our purposes, 3 important points can be made about chemical reactions. First, in some reactions, less complex reactants are combined to form a larger, more complex product. An example is the synthesis of the complex molecule of the human body from basic, quote, building blocks, end quote, obtained from food. Second, in other reactions, a reactant can be broken down or decomposed into simpler, less complex products. An example is the breakdown of food molecules into basic building blocks. Third, atoms are generally associated with other atoms through chemical bonding or intermolecular forces. Therefore, to synthesize new products or break down reactants, it is necessary to change the relationship between atoms. Synthesis reactions. When 2 or more reactants chemically combine to form a new and larger product, the process is called a synthesis reaction. An example of a synthesis reaction is the combination of 2 amino acids to form a dipeptide. In this synthesis reaction, water is formed as the amino acids are bound together. Synthesis reactions in which water is a product are called dehydration reactions. Old chemical bonds are broken and new chemical bonds are formed as the atoms rearrange as a result of a synthesis reaction. Another example of a synthesis reaction in the body is the formation of adenosine triphosphate, ATP. In ATP, A stands for adenosine, T stands for tri, or 3, and P stands for phosphate group. In parentheses, PO4 3 minus, in parentheses. Thus, ATP consists of adenosine and 3 phosphate groups. See page 50 for details of the structure of ATP. ATP is synthesized from adenosine diphosphate, ADP, which has 2 phosphate groups, and an inorganic phosphate, in parentheses, H2PO4 minus, in parentheses, which is often symbolized as P, capital P, lowercase I, but the lowercase I is small and to the bottom left side of the P. And then there's a formula, the A dash, capital A dash, capital P dash, capital P, and then on the bottom you have, in parentheses, ADP, in parentheses, plus, then you have the capital P lowercase I, and then in parentheses, inorganic phosphate, in parentheses, and then you have an arrow pointing to the right from there, which gives us capital A dash, capital P dash, capital P dash, capital P, and then in parentheses, ATP. Synthesis reactions produce the molecules characteristic of life, such as ATP, proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acids. All of the synthesis reactions that occur within the body are referred to collectively as anabolism. The growth, maintenance, and repair of the body could not take place without anabolic reactions. Decomposition reactions. A decomposition reaction is the reverse of a synthesis reaction. A larger reactant is chemically broken down into two or more smaller products. The breakdown of a disaccharide, in parentheses, a type of carbohydrate, in parentheses, into glucose molecules is an example. Note that this reaction requires that water be split into two parts and that each part be contributed to one of the new glucose molecules. Reactions that use water in this manner are called hydrolysis, in parentheses, water dissolution, in parentheses, reactions. So, hydrolysis reactions. The breakdown of ATP to ADP and an inorganic phosphate is another example of a decomposition reaction. And then below we have capital A dash P dash P dash P, in parentheses, ATP. Then you have an arrow pointing toward the right. You have capital A dash capital P dash capital P, and then in parentheses, ADP. And then you have plus, you have the capital P lowercase I, which is the inorganic phosphate. End of page 32, beginning page 33. The decomposition reactions that occur in the body are collectively called catabolism. They include the digestion of food molecules in the intestine and within cells, the breakdown of fat stores, and the breakdown of foreign matter and microorganisms in certain blood cells that function to protect the body. All of the anabolic and catabolic reactions in the body are collectively defined as metabolism. Reversible reactions. A reversible reaction is a chemical reaction in which the reaction can proceed from reactants to products or from products to reactants. When the rate of product formation is equal to the rate of the reversible reaction, the reaction system is said to be at equilibrium. At equilibrium, the amount of reactants relative to the amount of products remains constant. The following analogy may help clarify the concept of reversible reactions and equilibrium. Imagine a trough containing water. The trough is divided into two compartments by a partition, but the partition contains holes that allow water to move freely between the compartments. Because water can move in either direction, this is like a reversible reaction. Let the water in the left compartment be the reactant and the water in the right compartment be the product. At equilibrium, the amount of reactant relative to the amount of product in each compartment is always the same because the partition allows water to pass between the two compartments until the level of water is the same in both compartments. If additional water is added to the reactant compartment, water flows from it through the partition to the product compartment until the level of water is the same in both compartments. Likewise, If additional reactants are added to a reaction system, some will form product until equilibrium is reestablished. Unlike this analogy, however, the amount of the reactants compared with the amount of products of most reversible reactions is not one-to-one. Depending on the specific reversible reaction, 1 part reactant to 2 parts product, 2 parts reactant to 1 part product, or many other possibilities can occur. An important reversible reaction in the human body involves carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. The reaction between carbon dioxide, CO2, and water, H2O, form carbonic acid, H2CO3, is reversible. Carbonic acid then separates by a reversible reaction to form hydrogen ions, H+, and bicarbonate ions, HCO3-. And then below you have CO2 plus H2O with an arrow going to the right and left, H2CO3, another arrow going to the right and going to the left, H plus, or hydrogen ion, plus HCO3 minus. If capital C, capital O2 is added to H2O, additional H2CO3 forms, which in turn causes more hydrogen ions and HCO3 minus to form. The amount of hydrogen ions and HCO3 minus relative to CO2 therefore remains constant. Maintaining a constant level of a hydrogen ion, or H+, is necessary for proper functioning of the nervous system. This can be achieved in part by regulating blood CO2 levels. For example, slowing down the respiration rate causes blood carbon dioxide levels to increase. The end of page 33, beginning of page 34. And this will be where I end this reading.